Okay, so we're going to talk about Rams standing together today. I do always love participant involvement. So if you have questions along the way, please feel free to ask. Sometimes I'll put you on the spot, just kidding, but not really. I might. But we're going to start off with this picture. So the second time I did this presentation, 3 goats that I thought were Rams. It didn't go over so well. I kind of got laughed at a little bit, but I think these are Rams, right? So I want you all to look at these beautiful Rams. They come in all different shapes, sizes, and colors. They come from all walks of life. They were probably raised differently by their various Ram families. They look at life differently. Some have political views, some have spiritual views, some have none. They also have different ways of living their lives. Some come from rural settings, most of them, right? Some come from the city. Some have a history of trauma, and some lived a pretty straightforward high life. Some of them have been bullied. Some of those were bullied. Which one do you think was the bully up there? Just kidding. I don't know. They all have unique characteristics, but one thing that unites them all, the Rams, right? So the purpose of our training today is to create a culture of Rams looking out for each other. And as the slide says, Rams standing together. So when we think about the term bystander intervention, many of you probably have a pretty good idea of what that means, but we're going to start with a video with some people talking about situations where they have an opportunity to intervene for others.
A friend made fun of someone for the clothing they were wearing, and I told them to stop it because I didn't think it was right.
So once I was working on a group project and someone insulted me, and someone I completely didn't know just actually stood up for me.
My friend was having a panic attack, so I sat with them and played their favourite music.
There was a time when someone we knew made a racist comment, and I stepped in to let them know it made my friends uncomfortable.
I helped someone who was depressed go to counseling.
I was at this club in Montreal once, and I noticed that someone was really drunk and was also tripping over themselves a lot. And they were surrounded by people. So I went up to the person and asked who they had come to the club with. And it turns out that the people were just their friends. So it was all good at the end.
Once my friend was uncomfortable with a person who was hitting on them, so they asked me to pretend to be in a couple with them to get the other person to go away.
One time I was on a date, and the person was creepy. I thought I saw them put something in my drink, so I told my friend, and they called me, giving me a polite excuse to leave.
If I, as a queer person, I'm in a place that isn't queer, and someone backs me up or validates me, that feels really empowering.
Someone I knew was being bullied at school, so I stepped in and told the bullies to stop.
A tour guide started making very inappropriate comments with one of my friends. The friend felt very uncomfortable, and I told the tour guide to stop.
My friend wasn't eating well and I was worried about them, so I suggested they book a counselling appointment.
I was walking down the High Line once when I saw a person being chatted up by someone they didn't look like they wanted to talk to. And even though I didn't know the person, I offered them to come do homework at my place, and it worked.
Someone threw a plastic bottle on the ground, so I asked them to pick it up.
At the bar in London, my friend noticed that I'm being followed. My friend stood between the person and me, and directed me to the bathroom and out of the club. I stopped a close friend from starting a fight on a night out.
My younger brother was being bullied at school, so I stepped in and stopped the bullying.
Somebody was super clingy on my friend. My friend looked really scared of them. I told the person to back off. My friend and I left. Found him later.
I really appreciate them for doing that.
I'm just glad I asked.
It made them feel like they weren't alone.
I'm really grateful to them.
I'm really grateful.
All right.
I'm so grateful to them for helping me out.
What can we do? So I had this problem earlier. There's gonna be lots of situations that we come across in our day-to-day life where we can look out for other people and step up. So let's look at a few more examples with just pictures. Okay, so what do you all see here? Some of these scenes are obviously open to interpretation, but what do you see here where how and why we would intervene? Any idea? When I think about this fight, right, when we were a kid, all like stood around the circle and said, fight, fight, fight. I mean, we're not kids anymore, so we're not going to do that. But how often do you see that still happen? I mean, I see these terrible videos all the time where people are just bludgeoning each other and everyone's just standing there watching, being entertained. Anybody else see anything up here? You know it. That is a very good ram standing together, stopping them before.
Someone needing help, maybe passed out or something.
Yeah, we could have like a medical situation. We could have an intoxication situation. I mean, that person is very vulnerable to lots of terrible things happening, assuming additional context. Any others?
Farm, bedding.
Yeah. I mean, mental health is obviously the field I come from, so lots of people suffer in silence. Sometimes it can be visible like that, and other times we may have a roommate who is just withdrawn and acting completely different. Do we want to take a risk and talk to them, ask them how they're doing, or kind of just let it go? We have the classic hazing situation. Fraternity sorority. I got to give this presentation to the Greeks about a month ago. But they of course assured me that hazing does not happen anymore at ASU, so that's good. But it does probably happen in other places. Again, do we stand by and let people go through some different experiences or not? So anyway, you get the idea. There could be discrimination in lots of different ways. There could be people putting things in drinks to take advantage of them. There's bullying, not just face to face in the flesh, a lot of online bullying as well. So are we trying to, and create an environment that is safe for all people? All right, so let's take a look at the boring slide, right? This is the definitions of bystander, upstanding and bystander effect. So bystanding is an individual observing or witnessing a situation or discrimination or violence committed by a perpetrator towards a victim. They can do several things: condone, intervene, or do nothing. Of course, we hope that all of you by the end of today will have a greater sense of trying to upstand, which is recognizing these acts of injustice and standing up by interrupting and challenging those situations. And then there is also a psychological phenomenon called bystander effect, which if you've taken probably any psychology class, you probably learned a little bit about. But it's counterintuitive that individuals are less likely to help or intervene in a situation due to the ambiguity of the situation, the inhibiting presence of multiple people. So the more people that are around, the less likely we're to offer help. And we're going to watch a video on that in a bit. And then the social influence of other people's inactions sort of creates a rule for us that, well, if no one else is acting, why would I? So this is where I was gonna play a guessing game, because at home I can't play guessing games because my wife gets extremely annoyed. Say, what percentage of X is this? And she's like, I don't want to try. So, and I already gave the statistics in the email, so we'll just look at the slide. But this is a pretty solid survey of over 5,000 college students from California Polytech. And this is what they saw in 2022. 54% of college students witnessed bias, exclusion, and discrimination. 45 sexual violence, which, I mean, that's a pretty high number. I know there's that typical statistic that 1 out of 4 students will be sexually assaulted. This is putting that number even higher, which is pretty terrifying. 69% witnessed unhealthy alcohol use, which I probably think is kind of low. I mean, I guess I don't know for sure. But it's still a very high number. And then 47 unhealthy drug and 26 hazing. So I guess it does happen, at least in Cal Poly. Now, when I was going through these charts and data, each one of them listed a percentage of people that said, yeah, if I saw one of these things happen, someone should intervene. And that number ranged from 89% to 96%. But do we think in this world that we live in that actually happens at that high of a clip? Probably not. And there's a lot of reasons why, which we'll get to. All right, so let's start with a big reason why we already alluded to it, the bystander effect.
Place like this street in New York City, if you were unfortunate enough to be the victim of a crime or taken ill unexpectedly, you might think that surrounded by all these people, someone would intervene. After all, isn't there safety in numbers? Psychologists say no. Research suggests that often a victim is less likely to receive assistance when surrounded by a group rather than a single bystander. When people are in a crowd, it's easier to pass the buck. It's what psychologists call the diffusion of responsibility. Liverpool Street Station in London, a busy thoroughfare for commuters. Unknown to these passers-by, Peter is an actor. As part of an experiment on bystander apathy, he's pretending to be ill.
Help! Help!
How long before he gets help?
Please, somebody. Help! Help me, sir. Please help me.
Helping would be inconvenient or even risky. He lies there for more than 20 minutes and no one raises an eyebrow.
Please, somebody help me.
It's always very distressing to watch situations like this where people are obviously suffering and no one's actually helping them. But what we have here is two conflicting rules. One is the rule that we ought to help, and the other is the rule that we ought to do what everybody else is doing. And here you have effectively a group of strangers who are exerting the pressure not to intervene, not to help. And it's very difficult to rebel.
Ruth, another actor, takes Peter's place. How long before she receives help? Four minutes later, and 34 people have passed without stopping.
Well, people don't really want to know. They just haven't got the time. Well, they have got the time, they just don't want to get involved.
Unwittingly, these strangers have silently formed a temporary group with a rule: don't get involved. They're afraid to stand out from the crowd and won't take action if no one else does. This woman has clearly spotted Ruth, but she conforms to the rule and does nothing. Watch what happens, though, when someone else helps.
You alright? You alright?
Yes, thank you.
Sure, you look a bit clicky, you know what I mean?
She suddenly finds herself in a different group with a new rule: to help.
You want to sit up?
She don't look well, does she?
You alright, yeah. Yes, you are.
First I thought she was dead. Then I sort of checked to see if she was breathing or not. And I looked around and I couldn't believe that no one had noticed her because there was a bloke sat there just absorbed in reading a newspaper.
This time, Peter's dressed as a respectable gentleman. Now that his dress is in keeping with those around him, how long before he's rescued?
Hello, sir. How are you today?
I'm alright.
6 seconds. She even calls him sir, and suddenly everyone's a good Samaritan.
Do you suffer from epilepsy?
No.
Why you're lying on the floor in the rain?
Because he's part of the right group. Everyone wants to help.
I would just hate to be in his position of feeling ill and nobody helping and walking past, so I'd just like to check that he was okay.
And I thought, well, it's wet, so he must really be ill because he's going to ruin his suit anyway.
Any thoughts?
Something that stood out to me was a woman said we want to help, but we also want to be like everybody. I feel like there's like a culture that we assume, and it takes us to build that as a community. It's like one of our
Excellent. Yeah, that's what we're trying to do here too. Get the word out, care for one another. Good. But yeah, there's a tension there. It's like, I mean, you could see several people laid eyes on those people and they just kept walking. Normally we would think this is a no-brainer, right? But there's an underlying, I don't want to break the other rule. No one else is doing it. Maybe I'm missing something, which we're going to talk about in a second. Any other thoughts about it? Excellent. Yeah. If you can't be the person to help, can we do something that gets someone else involved? And that's a goal. So good. Thank you. All right. So we are going to look at a very old model of helping. It's by two psychologists, Latane and Darley. I'm probably mispronouncing their names, but they created this model back in 1970, after the Kitty Genovese murder. Has anyone heard of that story? So in 1964, Kitty was coming home at like 3 in the morning. Outside of her house, she was murdered. And the initial reports from the New York Times said that 37 people were like watching and didn't do a thing, didn't call the police, didn't intervene, just left her standing there. We found later that that was a lie, that there wasn't 37 people, but it still prompted this research. And I mean, it's terrible. I wouldn't say like something good came out of it because obviously someone was murdered, but it did develop the system called 911 that we have today because people realized we need some sort of quick access to help. So this has 4 stages, not including the emergency and providing help. We're just going to go pretty quickly through these just because I do want to keep this succinct. So noticing the event. So the more stimuli in any environment that you're in, the less likely you are to notice, right? So if you're in New York City, I mean, that was assuming London or someplace like that. It was still pretty easy to see. Of course, the camera was focused directly on that person, but the more distractions and the more unfocused we are, the less likely we're going to notice. Interpreting the event. This is often the most difficult step in the model because we don't always see the whole picture. So picture 2 people, even on ASU's campus, and engaged in a heated exchange, like they're talking loudly, kind of aggressively, and we're walking by. Are we sure that this is a significantly escalating event and it's going to come to blows if no one does anything, or could this just be 2 best friends who banter this way? We don't really know. So there is sort of a risk to get involved, like that other guy said at the end of the video. We're also likely to project our own values onto others. So who should I pick on? I'm gonna pick on this guy because he was here first. Can I pick on you? This is really easy. So if you saw someone, if you saw someone crying on a park bench, like outside, just like kind of weepy, but they're in a public space, would you go up to them or kind of let them be because it's kind of an emotional situation?
Actually, you bumped into an exact situation, but outside anyway.
Okay. How'd you handle it? You did? Awesome. Look at that. So let me ask you this. On the flip side, if you were that person kind of in an emotional state, would you want someone to say, hey, are you okay, man? Or would you want them to keep walking? Okay. So that's a good honest answer. So typically we usually would want what we would want people to do to us is what we're going to do to others. Not all the time, but oftentimes we do project our values into other people. And again, if you walked on by and never talked to that person, I mean, we don't know the outcomes. They could have. We've maybe some of you have heard the story about the suicide survivor from the Golden Gate Bridge who said basically this morning, if I'm going to go through my day and if anyone even says hello to me, I'm not going to jump. And no one did. So that is obviously a very dramatic situation. But it does happen. Other times we do want to be left alone. So, all right, there's also a phenomenon called pluralistic ignorance. All right, so this is where people think that other people in the environment that they're coexisting with have information that they don't, and they base judgments on what they think others are thinking. So a great example of this is a professor just goes through this ridiculously complex math or engineering type problem. It could be any problem. Of course, at the end, like a good professor, they're going to say, hey, does anyone have any questions? All the students look at each other slowly. And they're like, no, we're good. But of course, everyone internally has millions of questions and they're all lost. So no one does it because they all assume that everyone else gets it and they don't want to look like the odd person out and everyone is worse off. All right, the diffusion of responsibility, which that video was about, assuming others will take action, therefore we don't take action. There was this one study on the bystander effect said that when there's only one person around, 85% of the time they will help. When there's 2 people, that drops to 64%. When there's more than 4, it drops down to 31% of the time that we help. All right, how to help or knowing the appropriate form of assistance is the last stage. So there is a very real possibility that you don't know what to do in a given situation. I walked by that girl that was passed out on the side of the street. Maybe she does need medical attention. If I've not been CPR trained, I probably think I'm gonna like make the situation worse if I help. Not a great reason for me not to call like 911, like you mentioned. But there is some fear in situations. There's also fear of retribution and maybe someone who is doing something violently, could they retaliate against you? I mean, those are all real things. But our point of this, and we're going to talk about safely intervening at the end, but can we find someone that can help? Can we use an ASU resource, even if it's after the fact? Can I go run up to one of those blue call boxes and press that button? Can I call an ambulance? Things like that. All right, now that we're aware of the helping model, let's look at why college students struggle to intervene and in what situations we are most likely to do so. All right, so this is a terrible chart. I showed this to Dr. Petty a long time ago, and he's like, you need to do something with these colors because you can't even see them. So I actually made them bright, and you can kind of see them. But this is basically the percentage of students who did not intervene in one of those 5 key areas that we talked about earlier. And at what percent. So students were actually pretty good at noticing emergent situations. I mean, the highest one was 31%, but typically we're pretty good at seeing them. There is a lot of stimuli at a college campus, but also there's lots of space, and sometimes it's pretty easy to see. The hardest part was the failure to diagnose. Again, not having all that information, not having sometimes the courage to step up. So just, I'm going to throw some questions out to you. There's in this area of bystander intervention, there's not always a black and white answer, right? Which I know leaves us all unsatisfied. But these are some questions for us to ponder. So, how socially aware are we? Like when we're walking through any given environment. I mean, I walked from the counseling center over to here. I didn't see too many people, but usually when I do, I'm one of them. So right here, right? It's hard to see what's going on around me when this is in my face. And again, I'm not just going to be that old guy that blames their phone for all our problems, but it does not help us know what's going on around us. Are we looking up? Are we looking down? I'm going to give you another example. My favorite, let's make fun of Walmart example. Okay. So have you ever walked to Walmart? Try to get in the front door, maybe try to get to those carts, and there's 2 people having just a wonderful conversation right in the middle of the doorway. Hey, there might be people that want to get by. Similarly, have you ever tried to get your cart down one of the aisles and someone was over there grabbing something to leave their cart just right in the middle of the aisle? And last but not least, when you go out to the parking lot after pushing your cart around the store for an hour, just leave it so it can smash up the cars. Walmart can get sued, and then we all pay higher prices. All right, I'm done bashing, ranting. But that's a great example of the lack of social awareness that we show in society. And again, if we're showing that for something so minuscule as the people around us shopping, are we paying attention to the needs of people in our communities? All right, so last question is, no, 2 more questions. Does it seem like someone is being taken advantage of, needs help? Would I rather risk someone getting hurt in this situation or risk looking like a fool because I misinterpreted it and stepped in to intervene? So going back to your example, sir, if you didn't, check on that person, again, we don't know what could have happened, but it could have been terrible. They could have felt uncared about at the very minimum. But they also were greeted by a nice person who showed some kindness, which is always a good thing. All right, so if you do diagnose a situation as stand together worthy, I don't want you to put yourself in harm's way. I mean, again, there's many situations that could be violent and aggressive. But again, get help in whatever way you can. And again, like I promise, we'll drill down on that a little bit at the end. All right, failure to take responsibility. It's very easy to say, just like even one of the guys in the video said, no one wants to get involved or everyone's too busy. But then he's like, we're really not that busy. It's just that we don't want to get involved. And that's true. And again, busyness in our society is like the new fad. It's like if I'm busy, I'm cool or productive or I matter. That's kind of how we measure our worth, sadly. We have our own problems. Sometimes we also victim blame. I don't know if anyone has ever heard of this concept before, but take for instance, like the highest one in this one is about alcohol use. So someone who is walking around, stumbling around, by banging the head in the ground, we may very well say, well, it's your fault. Why did you drink 27 Busch Lights before you went to the party? And there might be some truth to that. Or maybe that person, again, laying on the grass there, had too much to drink. Maybe she even smoked some marijuana or something. And now she's in that position. Now, there is truth that they made those choices, but would we ever want to leave someone out to dry like that? I hope not, but everyone has that choice. So I guess another question to ask yourself is how are we doing individually, societally, university wide at showing empathy, trying to put ourselves in other people's shoes? Are we living out our, someone mentioned earlier, the RAM values that we're going to hit on at the very end? All right, fourth one is lack of skills. In other words, I would say another way to say this is I don't feel competent to help, which we touched on a little bit earlier. So in this survey, the most unlikely area of intervention was bias, exclusion, and discrimination. So the truth is we do live in a very divided society, divided world. Humans are very tribal. There's discomfort with discussions around around topics of race and identity. And I guess it would be extremely helpful if we all just sought to treat each other with the dignity and respect that we all deserve. And sort of we're open to other worldviews. So again, put yourself in a situation where you're around a bunch of people, maybe they're your friends, you hear a sexist, racist joke, or just see someone being excluded for whatever reason. How hard is it really to stop and say, hey, that was inappropriate? Or have you considered what you're saying and the message you're sending? I mean, you could be faced with some social exclusion yourself. You could be retaliated against. You could be kicked out of the group. So some questions about that is sometimes we need to consider who we affiliate with, who our friends are, and what they stand for. All right, last but not least is intervention costs, which are relatively low, which means that people don't care their intended consequences. Just kidding, they probably do. But think about, again, society-wise, are interveners heroes or zeros? Do they receive retaliation or gratitude? Some of both, mixed. Are society or organizational whistleblowers usually applauded or demonized? I think it's usually the latter. Are we willing to risk standing together with someone when it's not popular? If you let an example, if you're in a fraternity with rampant hazing, are you going to risk getting your chapter in trouble by turning in the people that are hazing? Then everyone's gonna be pretty upset with you. And if you know of a Title IX issue between the faculty and a student going on, are you going to risk your grade if you're a student, and possible retaliation to report such a thing? It's a tough situation. Another tough situation. If you are a staff member and a student confides in you and maybe their mental health difficulties, and they're like, please don't tell anyone, it's hard enough for me to share this. Are you going to file a care report because you believe it's the best for that safety and maybe you aren't like a therapist or a counselor? Incredibly tough call to make. They may never trust you again, but you may have saved a life or gotten them to more resources than they otherwise normally would have. So again, all I'm asking for is for us all to reflect on those things. And we definitely have a lot of work to do in some of these categories. All right, let's look at the flip side of this. What does it look like to be an upstander? All right, upstanding behaviors, percentage of students. These are the reasons why. I'm not going to read them all off, but I would love for you to look at this list and a couple people say which ones stand out to you and maybe why you would overcome all those risks to upstand. Any others that you really resonate with, or anybody online?
I like someone once. But I feel like
Yeah. I mean, you're kind of repaying back. You were in a similar situation. You've developed a lot of empathy for others. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and sometimes we just react, which it's not always wise, but it can be extremely helpful. All right, any others? Last chance. All right, I'm going to give you some common traits of upstanders, and this is kind of putting this list all together. 1, courage, right? Like we talked about a lot. It is going to take courage at times to step up for others. It's being cognizant of your social environment, awareness of what's going on around you. Again, we don't have to be hyper focused on everything, but being intentional and aware. Speaking up for what's right. Again, very difficult situation, especially depending on the context and the crowd. Holding peers accountable. I would say that also includes ourselves. And then accepting responsibility for the safety of those around us. All right, so ASU has already been working towards some of this by coming up with their values. So here are the ASU values. I tried to make this as readable as possible, but it was hard. Looking at integrity, diversity and inclusion, significance, community, commitment. Do any of these values integrate, mesh well with RAM standing together? Which ones? Yeah, 3. Yeah, it's awesome. And there's some bullet points down here you probably can't read. Generate an environment that handles adversity and supports resilience, encourage healthy conflict, advocate self-reflection. Okay, well, I think it relates. Deliver excellence. Okay, you know what? I think they all apply. Can you believe that? That's why I use this as part of the presentation, because they all really do apply. All right, let's talk lastly about the 5 Ds of bystander intervention. All right, so distraction, delegation, document, delay, and direct. This comes from Hollaback. So when we think through these, at least some of them, we're going to use this as our example situation because I want this to be as real and as practical as we can be. So a girl drinking alcohol at a party, clearly intoxicated on a couch in public. A guy comes over to sit next to her and immediately gets touchy-feely. The girl does not seem interested in the advances, but is also not in full control of herself. So if we were going to look at this distraction, so indirectly diffuse the situation by interrupting, what are some things that we could do as the bystander seeing this unfold? How could we distract without putting ourselves in immense danger? We also have to consider that there are other people around. It is a party. The girl? Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. That's not too dangerous.
It's different to go over with you.
Bingo. Excellent. Yeah, so there's strength in numbers. You're also engaging the person. Good. Any others? Y'all are good and creative. I love it. All right, I'll offer a couple more. Some of these are really creative and maybe crazy. Just kidding. But this is not crazy. Go over and talk to the girl. Ask her if she wants some fresh air. Kind of putting together. Accidentally spill a drink on the guy or the girl and help her to the bathroom so she can clean herself up. Right? Act like you know the girl and start a conversation and take her to safety. Pull the fire alarm if there is one. Again, we're creating a distraction. I don't know. Maybe that was something I pulled for that. I don't know. I'm thinking it's a private residence. So get everyone to start dancing to interrupt the situation. Let's all dance, everyone. Right? So again, get creative, and in those moments, it may be hard to think like that, but we're just giving you some ideas. All right, delegate. So ask a third party for assistance, preferably an authority. So again, thinking of the same scene of two people on the couch situation. Any ideas of what we could do? I mean, it's pretty straightforward, probably, but one of the things seems to be common sense to be like, should we call the police? And again, maybe in this situation, that would be totally cool. Sometimes, like after a sexual violence or something, sometimes we would always want to ask the victim, is it okay for me to call the police? Because sometimes they don't want that to get involved in situations like that. But so just some ideas. Again, I'm thinking of time. Alert your friends to the situation you're witnessing. Again, try to get the strength in numbers. Come up with a plan to interrupt the scene together. Use your have one person attend to the potential victim and one person engage the potential partner. And typically you want to do this with unrelated information. Like if you don't want to be the direct confronter, hey dude, you better stop this right now. You might say, hey, you might do the same thing. Hey dude, remember we were in high school together? Just get them off of the situation. Find the owner, this is the authority figure, find the owner of the house or the apartment and let them know so that they can step up and intervene in that situation. I would say you probably could call the police in this situation, but it might not have risen to the level of that point. All right, number 3, document. If someone else is helping, that's the key point. Take notes and video the situation. One of the great advances of the technology is that we all can take videos and we all see these videos going viral. So if the person is being helped, safely record it from a distance. Try to, I think most videos are date and time stamped, but say the date and time in the video. So this way you can act as a help for the person who is in a bad situation. Record things that can identify the location. And then after the fact, always ask the person who is being recorded what they want done with it before you make it go viral, right? We don't want to re-traumatize someone who's already been through something without their permission. All right, delay. Check in with the victim. So again, this is usually more of an after the fact situation, but check in with the victim, ask them if they're okay, need any help or resources of any kind. If you documented any of the activity, let them know to see if they need a witness of any kind. And last but not least is that direct confrontation. So before you directly intervene, these are some questions you probably should ask yourself. Are you physically safe? Is the victim physically safe? Does it seem like the situation will escalate further? Is it obvious that the victim wants someone to intervene? Are they making eye contact, giving you body language that would say, please help me? If you answer yes to every one of those questions, a direct response might be necessary. So just some useful tips. If you are in this situation and you don't feel extremely comfortable, definitely don't do it alone. Can you grab anyone around you in any of these situations? Get others involved. Verbally and loudly call out the behavior of the perpetrator with short and succinct statements. Leave her alone. That's not appropriate. Stop that right now. If the person tries to argue with you, the possible perpetrator, move your attention to the victim and reduce the likelihood of escalation. Oftentimes, if you are shouting back, tensions rise, flare up. All right, so again, unfortunately, I can't sit up here and say, oh, if you do these little tips, nothing terrible is going to happen. We all have to decide if and when to intervene in a given situation. All right, let's watch one more entertaining video. No, well, I gotta use one more video, and then we're gonna get a chance to use this as a case study to see what we might do.
They dissolve quickly and leave no smell, no taste, and no trace. Date rape drugs. Surveys show that roughly 1 in 5 students is sexually assaulted while in college. In fact, even the president is calling for action.
Some of this is a job for government, but really, it's up to all of us to be brave enough to stand up and help put an end to these crimes.
So we set up a scenario at the Mason Jar in Mahwah, New Jersey.
I thought I saw you around campus.
Yeah.
A young female student is approached by 2 classmates.
I think I'm gonna go to the bathroom, actually.
She's about to become a victim of predators with dark intentions. What would you do if you saw this?
Hey,
Hi. What's up?
Hey.
So, you come here often?
No, actually, I was just telling her. This is my first time around here, so.
Oh, cool. Wait, what does that say? Well, don't study. Yep, that's what it says.
Within seconds, these young college girls put the guys on their radar.
What class is that?
Government.
I think I took that class.
Did you?
Yeah. Do you want to come over here and I'll help you study?
The plan is to not study anymore.
Okay, I'll just have one glass of red wine. That's it. And then I need to study, okay? I'm gonna go to the bathroom.
While she's away,
All right, do it.
Let's go. That's fine. I'm gonna do it.
Dude.
Ah. I was planning on stopping it. This video.
they dissolve quickly.
All right, what would you do?
They dissolve.
What would you do in that situation? Yeah?
Yeah.
So get it. Okay. So get them on camera, document, talk to an authority figure, get them involved.
Stop and talk to her before she went back to her seat.
Great. Yeah, intervene with the potential victim. Excellent. Okay. Do you want to see what happens? If we can get this video not to.
They dissolve.
You're not going to do this to me.
They dissolve quickly.
Come on, man.
They dissolve quickly and leave no.
Okay. What do I do? Right?
They dissolve quickly and leave no smell, no taste, and no trace. Date.
All right, I'm not gonna play it just for time. Would you rather watch it? All that? I mean, it's only another minute.
They dissolve quick.
Do you want to watch it? You kind of do, don't you? All right, let's watch it. It's only 2:47.
They dissolve quickly and leave no smell, no taste, and no trace. Date rape drugs. Surveys show that roughly 1 in 5 students is sexually assaulted while in college. In fact, even the president is calling for action.
Some of this is a job for government, but really, it's up to all of us to be brave enough to stand up and help put an end to these crimes.
So we set up a scenario at the Mason Jar in Mahwah, New Jersey.
I thought I saw you around campus.
Yeah.
A young female student is approached by 2 classmates.
I think I'm gonna go to the bathroom, actually.
She's about to become a victim of predators with dark intentions. What would you do if you saw this?
Hi.
What's up?
Hey.
So, you come here often?
No, actually, I was just telling her. This is my first time around here, so.
Oh, cool. Wait, what does that say? Well, don't study. Yep, that's what it says.
Within seconds, these young college girls put the guys on their radar.
What class is that?
Government.
I think I took that class.
Did you?
Yeah. Do you want to come over here and I'll help you study?
The plan is to not study anymore.
Okay, I'll just have one glass of red wine. That's it. And then I need to study, okay? I'm gonna go to the bathroom.
While she's away.
All right, do it.
Let's go. That's fine. I'm gonna do it.
Dude. Not cool.
What?
Not cool.
It's flu medication.
No. Hey, stop. Get out of here right now. I will call the police. Get out of here.
Hey.
Don't drink that.
What happened?
They put something in that. Don't drink that. Don't.
No idea what she's talking about.
Did you see that? Yeah.
I did see it.
You saw it.
There's nothing in her drink. I see wine.
Then you drink it. She's gonna sit with us now.
That's cool, but whatever.
Here.
Y'all.
Sit in that one.
We're getting out of here.
Thank you.
Well, thanks a lot, girls.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
Time to meet these brave college students.
I'm John Quinones with What Would You Do?
I've seen this show.
Well, you didn't give him much time at all.
No, they were just creepy and in her face. And when they were fiddling with something, I'm like, this looks really suspicious.
Even before that, you asked her,
Yeah.
join us. Come over here. I took that class. Did you take that class?
I didn't take that class.
Oh, you did?
No.
All right, what would you do? Great show. You ever seen it? There's lots of clip. I don't even know if it's still going, but who did?
Mr. Quinones.
He did? Amazing. I didn't know that. Awesome. All right, this is where we end. Any questions about anything that we talked about? Not at this time, but definitely can get more in depth. Yeah. Anything online? Yeah, it was just kind of a broad overview, and definitely it's student focused. Anything online for questions? Otherwise, if you, I mean, again, please fill out this. It's a really short survey. If you could fill it out, because I have already updated this like 2 or 3 times based on every time I've given it, I've added things. Apparently videos that won't stop playing too, so. But I thank you all so much for coming.